NASA is building their most powerful rocket ever built, and it's considered within the grand scale of the best. However, it took almost a decade and tens of billions of dollars to get to this point. In 2021, the rocket is 5 years behind schedule and has cost billions more than originally projected. Many opinions have indicated that this could be the last rocket built by NASA. It may end up being a transitional vehicle, allowing NASA to pave the way for a future, in which the private space sector builds the rockets and the agency just provides funding and scientific expertise. Can this be true? What would NASA's next plan with the SLS rocket? NASA has asked the U.S. aerospace industry how it would go about maximizing the long-term efficiency and sustainability of the Space Launch System rocket and its associated ground systems. The request comes as NASA and its chief contractor for the rocket, Boeing, are nearing the launch pad after a long, arduous and expensive development process that has lasted more than a decade. The heavy-lift SLS rocket carrying an Orion space capsule should finally make its debut during the first half of 2022, but in the recent request from NASA, the agency would like to fly the SLS rocket for 30 years or more as a national capability. Moreover, the agency wants the rocket to become a sustainable and affordable system for moving humans and large cargo payloads to cislunar and deep space destinations. NASA sees itself as the anchor tenant of the launch system and procures one crewed flight per year for the next decade or longer. Where appropriate, the agency said the industry will market the large launch vehicle to other customers, including the science community and other government and non-government entities. So how does one make a system that has been anything but affordable and sustainable into something that? NASA says it wants to transition ownership of rocket production and ground services to a private industry. In return, this private contractor should build and launch the cells at a substantial savings of 50% or more off of the current industry baseline per flight cost. Notably, NASA has never publicly stated this baseline flight cost. However, in 2019 the White House Office of Management and Budget estimated the cost of one's launch a year at over $2 billion. Subsequently, NASA did not deny that figure, but it has not been transparent with taxpayers about the rocket's expected costs anyway. NASA now proposes to cut this cost, whatever it is, in half, and it seeks to fly the Space Launch System rocket well into the middle of the 21st century, compared to every other launch system NASA has used. This seems like a big commitment. Can this plan actually be feasible? Theoretically, this may be possible. The SLS was initially designed in 2010 and officially announced in 2011, with hopes that it would enter space by the end of 2016, for a total cost of $10 billion. In the past, former Florida Senator Bill Nelson said, if we can't do a rocket for $11.5 billion, we ought to close up shop 10 years and $30 billion later. NASA is still open for business. But now that Nelson has become the administrator of NASA, it seems the agency is taking steps to lower the financial barrier to developing functional low Earth orbit and deep space launch systems. And assuming the SLS does actually launch in 2022, NASA might get its wish. Such an initiative would not be unprecedented. In the early 1990s, NASA sought to consolidate its space shuttle operations under a single major contractor. Rockwell International and Lockheed Martin formed a company, United Space Alliance, for this purpose. It operated the shuttle through the end of the program in 2011. It's not at all clear that the Space Shuttle's operational costs declined during this timeframe beyond the costs of the rocket. There are reasons to have concerns about the idea of flying the Space Launch System rocket for at least 3 more decades. Virtually the entire global launch industry is either contemplating or moving wholesale toward reusing at least the first stage of large rockets or their engines. SpaceX has led this effort, but other major U.S. launch companies, including Blue Origin, United Launch Alliance, Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, and others, are all incorporating reuse into their business plans. The European, Chinese, Japanese and Russian space industries are as well. The Space Launch System, although it is powered by reusable rocket engines that once flew on the Space Shuttle, is entirely expended after every flight. Moreover, there is a general sense in the space community that developing a truly affordable and sustainable exploration plan will require the development of reusable in-space hardware that is refuelable upper stages and tugs, and in-space assembly. The launch everything on one stack approach worked during the brute force era of the Apollo moon program. These advocates say, but it isn't sustainable as Apollo's costs were so high, the program was cancelled after just 6 moon landings. Therefore there will be many difficulties and challenges that NASA will have to overcome, in the next 30 years next. Every time SpaceX completes a mission, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, you can bet that Elon will be posting the results to his 63 million Twitter followers. As a result, young adults don't want to go work in NASA, where things really haven't moved for decades. They want to go work at SpaceX with Elon Musk, and that brings me on to my final point. Which is that NASA themselves have become self-aware of their shortcomings. Given that NASA has been around for over 60 years, their leaders have come to the realization that NASA is limited by government funding, declining public interest, and an aging workforce. Thus they have decided to embrace commercial space flight themselves. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine has placed a heavy focus on using NASA funding to fund SpaceX, Blue Origin and Boeing, as the money will likely have a large impact in the free market. The number of commercial space flight customers is quite limited, and NASA is no doubt one of the biggest customers, if not the biggest, and they've decided that promoting competitions within the commercial space flight industry is the best way they can spend their money. At the end of the day, NASA is the pioneer of space travel and exploration. Let's cover the development progress of the SLS rocket for the Artemis 1 mission, and answer the question: what is the exact launch date of the SLS rocket? Last week NASA and its myriad contractors for the Space Launch System, an Orion spacecraft, reached a significant milestone, creating a full stack of the rocket and deep space capsule for the first time. The completed launch vehicle stands an impressive 98 meters tall, inside the vehicle assembly building at the Kennedy Space Center. Although technicians and engineers still must put the rocket and spacecraft through a series of tests in the coming months for the first time. The HC discussed a possible launch window for the Artemis 1 mission. This launch, sending an uncrewed Orion spacecraft into orbit around the moon and back, could happen as soon as a 15-day window, from February 12 through the 27th. Much and more has to go right for NASA to make that launch window, so it's likely the Artemis 1 launch will slip further into spring of 2022. After the February launch window, which opens on the 12th, the next 2-week window opens on the 12th of March. Followed by one opening on the 8th of April. NASA must be careful with this rocket, because its next ESLRS vehicle will probably not be ready for flight for about 2 years, and if there is a catastrophic failure with this launch, it would raise questions about the future of the program. Perhaps at that time NASA will actually have to find a private company to build the SLS for. Thanks for watching this video, and it's a super interesting topic. If you like this, make sure to subscribe. If you have any crazy ideas about what we should cover in next video, please comment it below, and we'll see if we can get to it. So thanks again for watching and goodbye.